Contradictions in the four Gospels, number 2. So this is a very interesting question. On what day did Jesus die? Well, Christians cannot answer this question definitely because they would either have to go with the story of Mark or with the story of John. Now, if you read the Bible, you will find two different accounts. One, as I said, in the Gospel of Mark, and the other one in the Gospel of John. Now, in the Gospel of Mark, if you read chapter 14 and chapter 15, it says that Jesus was crucified on the day after the Passover meal. But in John, it says that he was crucified on the day of preparation for the Passover. So if we read, that's chapter 14, it starts, it covers a lot of topics. So it starts with the plot to kill Jesus. Then it continues with the betrayal of Jesus by Judas. And then it talks about, the preparation of the Passover meal. For example, in verse 12, it says, on the first day of unleavened bread, when the Passover lamb is sacrificed, his disciples said to him, "Where do you want us to go and make the preparation for you to eat the Passover?" Okay. And then Jesus sent them into the city, and there was a man, in verse 15 it says, "He will show you a large room upstairs, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there." So the disciples set out and went to the city and found everything as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover meal. Then in verse 17 it says, when it was evening, he came with the 12. Okay, so he came into the room with his 12 disciples, including Judas, who betrayed him. And then it talks about, Jesus is going to reveal that someone is going to betray him. Obviously, it was Judas. He also foretold the denial of Peter. And the chapter continues with that Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane and he prayed to the Father. So it's basically the same narrative as in Matthew chapter 26. And then the Jews came and they took him away. But then if you read, now it's chapter 15. So if you read chapter 15, it says, as soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and the scribes and the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Okay, so they handed him over to Pilate, and then he was crucified. But it was the morning after the Passover meal. So first the disciples prepared the food, then they ate together. Jesus and his disciples ate the Passover meal, and then the next morning, the Jews or the high priests and the scribes and the whole council handed him over to Pilate. But if you read the Gospel of John, it gives a completely different account of events. So, for example, Gospel of John chapter 19, verse 14. Now it was the day of preparation for the Passover, and it was about noon. And that was when Jesus was already with Pilate. Okay, so John says, on the day of the preparation for the Passover, he was with Pilate. The Jews handed him over to Pilate. But in Mark it says he ate the Passover meal, and then the next morning he was handed over to Pilate. And I think it's very important for us Muslims to know about these stories in the Bible, because then we can show our Christian brothers and sisters why the Bible is contradictory and why it's not a reliable source. Peace.